We have an updated story for you. This is updating, previous breaking news story on the ISM News Network about Nigerian nonsense. So it'd be very easy to miss the fact that Nigeria has won all 4 matches at AFCON and is, despite the fact that it's managed to miss back-to-back World Cups, looking like a favorite for this entire tournament. Impossible to argue with that. And yet, nobody's focusing on that unless I tell them about it, because everybody's focused on the Victor Osimhen drama after their win against Mozambique, and he's throwing this giant hissy fit. And now all of a sudden I see posts popping up on Reddit, popping up on Twitter, where the great minds of our generation coalesce to get bombarded with AI and terrible sports takes. And then I get these. Super Eagles squad will not travel to Marrakesh for the Algeria game unless the Nigerian Football Federation offsets outstanding win bonuses for AFCON. This is something that has continuously baffled me, but usually it occurs in a country like Ghana or Ivory Coast that I can recall having this issue where, particularly in Ivory Coast, there's been a civil war there in the last 25 years, right? The central government and the apparatus is in place, the apparati, if you will, are not exactly up to the level that you would hope to be able to contribute, consistent payments, because people do get paid to play international football. They don't get paid a lot, relative at the very high level to the contracts that they have signed, but they get paid, a solid amount of money for their time, right? Obviously, you want to play for the national team on pure patriotism. And most, or if not all of these guys would be there without it, but it is definitely always a bitter feeling if somebody promises you they're going to pay you $1 and you don't get paid it. It's always it's always a bit of a weird conversation. It's always a bit of an awkward conversation whenever you end up in a situation where you're talking about international teams' payments. But obviously, this is a huge headline too. Nigeria is going into the quarterfinals. Like I said, with an actual fucking chance to win the whole thing, and they have to threaten to do this. Now, I went and found some actual reporting on this from ESPN. Shout out Colin Udo. This was reconciled nearly immediately. Sources confirmed to ESPN the players informed officials on Tuesday night they would neither train nor board the flight to Marrakesh on Thursday until they receive their win bonuses. However, the Nigerian Football Federation president, Ibrahim Musa Gusau, told ESPN it had been resolved. The players were shown documents that their payments have been processed and they trained today, so there is no problem there. News of the dispute was first reported by Oluwashina Okaleji, so shout out to that dude at the BBC. An official from Nigeria's National Sports Commission, which oversees the NFF, told ESPN the payments have been processed through the Central Bank of Nigeria. This is where I learned something about Nigeria that you're about to learn too. I'm going to force you to learn it. The funds were delayed because the government is discouraging the transportation of cash, especially foreign currency, as it is currently against the law in Nigeria. So it's against the law to send money transfers in foreign currency out of Nigeria. Maybe they're trying to control the flow of money. I mean, I remember this was actually a big issue because the Chinese government had tracked down on the flow of capital outside of China, and that actually fucked over a lot of Chinese owners of clubs. I know it was easy to point the finger on some dude from a land far away over the hills and in the mist and say that dude just didn't care about the club, and that's why he wasn't putting the money in it. China had made it a lot more difficult to get the money out of China in order to fund stuff, and that's why so many Chinese ownership situations in the world of football went to shit. You don't have that from the Nigerian ownership situations. I guess the whole business of, scamming people with those Nigerian Prince emails hasn't really hit like it used to, but they are still struggling to pay their international players, apparently, and they have to go to the Central Bank of Nigeria to actually send this money off. Now, no, I was not planning on sitting here at midnight and discerning the various financial laws of Nigeria in order to try and solve all of this, but what a nuclear option to press. I mean, what an absolutely insane option to sign on for. This is apparently something that's also happened before. I didn't catch wind of this at the time, but before the World Cup playoff against DR Congo, they threatened to do this, and they ended up getting paid. Yeah, they were eliminated by DR Congo. For those that weren't paying attention, if they hadn't been eliminated, they'd still be alive to qualify for the World Cup, so thank you for keeping track of that. They're just having to threaten to get paid all the time, and that's pretty shitty. That's pretty shitty. I was kind of diving into it earlier to say, like, somebody promises that they're going to pay you this amount of money for a call up, this amount of money for, goal, assist bonuses, and those sorts of things. It exists in international football. I don't know exactly what structure they take, but it is generally understood that you're going to compensate these guys in some way, right? That's going to go beyond just a little per diem for your food budget, right? You're going to pay these guys thousands of dollars to show up, not millions, nothing crazy. Right, and you're probably making more money than you're spending just playing in the tournament. You're basically sharing in the prize money a little bit by paying these guys to be there. But the fact that the Nigerian national team, especially in a football federation, I mean, obviously, well, the football federation's a mess, right? But it's organized enough to be able to handle its accounting budgets and those sorts of things. The only national team that can't do that is Canada, because their national team went bankrupt for some fucking reason. Maybe they all got high on maple syrup. But Nigeria is a country with its shit together enough, right, with its football federation powerhouse and together enough that this shouldn't be happening. At the very least, the Nigerian players that are at AFCON with a very good chance to win should not have to think about their financial situation at all. And I imagine this is, at least in some small part, is weighing on the mind of a guy like Victor Osimhen, who, of course, since I released that last video, has continued to threaten to leave. And I also saw initial reports that maybe he'd already handed in his credential and he was done with the entire tournament. But I have, through my incredible investigative skills of reading literally one article, figured out why Victor Osimhen might have been so particularly upset that Ademola Lookman did not pass him the ball. You get $10,000 a goal playing for Nigeria, dude. That's 10,000 smackaroonies. That's 10,000 snickerdoodles. Every time you put the ball in the back of the net, even if you're playing Mozambique. That ain't half bad. That's a pretty good damn deal. I'm not going to lie. If I could make $10,000 for tap-in and some guy named Look Man didn't look at me to pass the ball, I would have been way more angry than Osimhen. $10,000 is $10,000. I would take that, get one really disgustingly nice steak dinner with Salt Bae sprinkling something on it, and then I'd be broke again tomorrow. So there might be something that I've failed to consider up to this point. Maybe what Nigeria needed was the chaos. Because while Ghana missed this tournament, Ivory Coast, a team that is subjected to this sort of chaos from time to time in terms of late payments or whatever, Ivory Coast won AFCON. They won the last one. Maybe Nigeria was too organized. They were too professionalized. Maybe what they needed was just that little dose of AFCON nonsense, which I appreciate them providing, by the way. Because this AFCON outside of Nigeria, outside of Osimhen, I mean, there have been some great late goals. There's been drama. There has not been that AFCON insanity. We have not had an official blow a match dead at 85 minutes. We haven't had, half of the field drop off like Bane was walking out there from Batman, right? We haven't had any of this crazy, we haven't had Sudan winning knockout matches. I mean, if you look at the last 8 in AFCON, it's the most chalk 8 you could possibly have. Every single pot 1 team and 2 teams from pot 2. That is who is in the quarterfinals of AFCON. We didn't have any drama. We didn't have any upset wins in the group stage. Right? Sorry, there was drama. I don't mean to say there wasn't, Algeria scoring in the 119th minute, penalty shootout, Mali, Tunisia, right? Like there have been moments where you go, oh, amazing, something happened. But it's AFCON, for crying out loud. If we didn't have Nigeria pulling this shit, this AFCON would be pretty barren. We would be short our normal fun AFCON stories. But yeah, if you see this popping up, Nigeria's national team is going to play the quarterfinal. This is apparently just the game that they have to play. They have to threaten the Nigerian Football Federation for them to actually pay, although this might have been a different situation than the ones before, or maybe all of the Nigerian players are just like goldfish and they forget that, it takes a long time for the payments to process because of the laws in Nigeria. I doubt that's the case. Nigerian Football Federation's probably hoodwinking and bamboozling them a little bit, but as long as Osimhen gets his 20,000 for that near hat trick, I think we're on to something.